What's up, guys? Lucky Locks here, going to be breaking down PFL 9 today, and we got the pleasure of watching some featherweights and light heavyweights in this one, and should be a pretty good card, headlined by Loughnane and Khaybulaev. And without further ado, let's get right into the fights. So the first fight of the night is going to be Jacob Kilburn and Brandon Jenkins. Jacob Kilburn is 8-4. He's coming in here after a run in the UFC, and it all started on Dana White's Contender Series in 2018. Got dominated on the ground by Bobby Moffett, who's actually also fighting on this card, and we'll talk about him later. After that loss, Kilburn wins 2 more regional fights, then he gets the call from the UFC. He loses 2 straight in the UFC. One of them was Austin Lingo. He was badly beaten in the first round, ended up being a 30-26 after the fight on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. Also fought Billy Q, kind of got dominated in that one as well. And those fights were separated by 1 year between them. I will say that he's probably fought much better competition than Jenkins has. He was scheduled to face Ali Al-Casey for the belt in Titan FC. That fight didn't end up materializing. He's the shorter guy in this fight, but the reach is the same. The thing is, though, that he's coming up to 155 here. Probably, I'm assuming due to the short notice nature of this bout. Usually he is a 145 pounder. And Brandon Jenkins, he's 14-7, training at a syndicate. Hasn't really fought the greatest guys, but he has fought a lot of pretty good level fights on LFA, good regional scene guys. He was kind of hit or miss there. Was pretty much trading wins and losses during his time there. He will have the size advantage in this bout. He's a pretty decently sized 155 pounder. He's fought at 170 pounds before, fought at a couple catch weights above 155, and he does have some good striking. For the most part, I feel like he looks pretty decent. So I'm actually going to go with Jenkins here. Kilburn coming up a weight class against the bigger guy who likes to pressure, likes to throw hands. I think I'm going to go with Jenkins here, but it's not super confident. The next fight on the card is Alejandro Flores, and he is coming up against Carl Deaton III in this one at featherweight. Flores is 19-3, very good looking record, has a big size advantage here. And he's a really good striker. I think he's going to be able to use that reach to kind of get what he wants out of this one and fight on his own terms. Probably the much better stand-up fighter here, in my opinion. 4-1 in his last 5. That loss came on Dana White's Contender Series to Rafael Alves. And Deaton III, 15-4. That's also a pretty good-looking record. He's a much smaller guy. Hasn't really fought super high-level competition. And, when he has fought those guys that are maybe like a little bit of a step up, Vince Murdoch, Jonas Flock, he has lost those ones. So his last fight was almost 2 years ago now. Most recent competition was last year. It was a boxing bout, which he lost. So I'm going to go with Flores here. I feel like Flores is better. I feel like he'll have some striking success. And yeah, I just think Flores is going to piece him up in this one. So I do have a little bit of money on him at minus 325 actually on a parlay with Darren Till of all people. So yeah, Flores is going to be my pick in this one. I feel like he gets it done. Now let's take a look at Jason Knight and Bobby Moffett, also at featherweight. And Jason Knight is a UFC veteran. He has a 21-6 record, has been doing some bare knuckle boxing, some bare knuckle MMA, has 2 regular MMA wins since 2017. He has a bare knuckle MMA win over a 30-42 guy. Won an MMA fight on Icon against a 12-14 guy. Beat Artem Lobov in a bare knuckle boxing match. That's actually kind of impressive. And had a win in some hybrid combat grappling type of match. I'm honestly not sure what it was, but the guy was 10-19 in MMA, whoever it was that he beat. So looking at Bobby Moffett now, 13-6. He was on RFA, slash LFA back in the day. Then Dana White's Contender Series, and then made it to the UFC. So he lost 2 straight on the UFC, and he's now making his second PFL appearance after losing to Bubba Jenkins in the first one. And he actually made a pretty good late push in that fight. His losses since 2014 include Hani Barcelos, Enrique Barzola, Bryce Mitchell, Bubba Jenkins. those are 4 of the 5 of them. It's not really bad guys that he's losing to, and these are all guys that I think that Knight would have a lot of trouble with too. Moffett was originally the underdog here, but he has since shifted to a slight favorite. Definitely has the better recent experience and, recent repetition than Knight coming into this. And I actually think that Moffett is probably the better fighter in this spot at this point in time. So I'm going to go with Bobby Moffett here to get the job done. Next up, we have Anthony Dizy, and he is fighting Jesse Stirn, also at 145 pounds. So Anthony Dizy is 13-4. He's going to have a nice reach advantage in this one. Going to be looking to get the fight down probably. I actually believe that he is slightly better on the feet as well, though. If for some reason this stays up the whole time, which I don't think it will. I just think that Dizy is straight up kind of the better fighter here. He had a fantastic first round against Chris Wade. Fell off a little bit after that, but this is a much more favorable matchup for him in my opinion. Jesse Stirn, 11-5, has a few decent names on his resume, but he's lost to everyone who is that kind of a step up in competition level. He was finished by sub by Sabatini and Sheymon Moraes as well last time out in PFL. I don't love his game, and I really don't love this matchup for him. So I'm going to be going with Anthony Dizy here, and I do have a little bit of money on him. I think that Dizy is a little bit better everywhere, and I think he gets the job done here. So that's going to be my pick. Now we're going to have a look at Chris Camozzi and Cory Hendricks at 205. This is an interesting matchup here. Camozzi 26-15. He's a pretty decent kickboxer, UFC veteran, 34 years old now. Should have the striking advantage in this fight, I feel like. Good comeback performance against Cezar Ferreira last time out. Not really worried about his gas tank after seeing him kind of be able to rally in the later rounds in that one. Cory Hendricks, 8-3, training at Syndicate, did well in the Ultimate Fighter back in the day, coming off a win over Marthin, Hamlet, Nielsen. Wasn't really going his way for most of that fight. Pulled out a late sub. Really, I didn't think he was going to win that one, but he did what he had to do in the third round and pull out that submission because he probably wasn't going to win on the scorecards at that point. I think that he can use his wrestling and grappling to get a win in this spot if he really goes in with a disciplined game plan here. So I'm actually going to go with the underdog, Cory Hendricks. I think it'll be a close fight. I'm not going to bet it, but I think I'm going to go with the dog here. It's a dog or pass spot to me. Sheymon Moraes and Lazar Stojadinovic at 145 pounds. Moraes 12-5, former UFC fighter. Like a lot of the guys on this card. And he got a win over Julio Arce. That was a pretty nice win. Has fought guys like Zabit Magomedsharipov, Marlon Moraes, and other guys. Comes into the PFL and gets one of the toughest matchups available in Brendan Loughnane. Gets knocked out in the first round there, but comes back next fight against Jesse Stirn, who we already talked about. Looks great, wins by Kimura in the second round. I think that he is the better fighter in this matchup against Stojadinovic. Stojadinovic is 14-8, hasn't fought a great level of competition prior to the PFL. Has a couple of decent wins. Jordan Parsons, Mike Richmond, but nothing crazy. Has some not so great losses. Fell short on Dana White's Contender Series. And in his last Titan FC appearance, which was a KO loss to Erwin Rivera, comes into the PFL in a 2-fight win streak and gets Khaybulaev. Really tough matchup. Kind of gets dominated in that one. Both these guys had really tough matchups in their first PFL fights, and the two guys that beat each of them respectively are actually fighting in the main event of this fight night. So interesting stuff how that works out here, and I am going to pick Moraes here. I think that Moraes is the side. I was able to snag him at -138. His line has shifted quite a bit since then. I just think that Moraes is a higher level fighter with better skills here, so that's why I'm going to pick him in this matchup to get the win. Next up, we have an interesting matchup at 205, and this is between Cezar Ferreira and Marthin Hamlet Nielsen. Ferreira is 14-9, had a long UFC career, now in the PFL. 1-1 this season. Quick KO win over Rorik in under 40 seconds. Then loses a decision to Camozzi. And he looked good in that first round against Chris Camozzi and then clearly lost the next two. Starting to wonder if age is catching up to him now at 36. I think he'll look good early here. I'm just very unsure of him continuing any of that success into the later rounds. Definitely there is cause for concern in that respect. Marthin, Hamlet, Nielsen, 7-2, comes into the PFL relatively unknown compared to a guy like Cezar Ferreira. Dominates Dan Spone, kind of as he should. Then gets Cory Hendricks next. Wins the first 2 rounds. I think we can all admit that. Then gets submitted in the third. I never want to call a win lucky, but I feel that, Hamlet was the better fighter there. Got caught. He's a younger and fresher man coming in here. He's taken much less damage this season than Cezar Ferreira has. So I think that there is some value on Ferreira in this one, but I just can't trust him not to fade in this fight. I think he'll have a strong first round. Maybe a live bet on Hamlet would be a good play. I don't feel as though I have much of an edge on this one, so I'll be staying away. But as the fight goes on, I can see Marthin, Hamlet, and Nielsen being able to land some takedowns and just win some more minutes than Ferreira in this one. Next up is another 205-pound matchup, and this is going to be between Emiliano Sordi and Antonio Carlos Jr. Sordi is 23-8-1. He won 6 straight, then had a draw his last time out. Last season, he fought 5 times, had 5 finishes, and won the whole tournament. This season, he looks a lot different, to be honest. Goes to a decision with Camozzi. Granted, he looked excellent in the first and third round, but fights to a draw with Dan Spone. That's not great. If you really had to pick a winner, I guess you could pick him there. But, Dan Spone really isn't too great now. I don't really like that result just on paper. Definitely raises some red flags with Antonio Carlos Jr. looking so good lately in his new weight class. Carlos Jr. 11-5, came off the Ultimate Fighter Brazil and had a long UFC career spanning 2014 to 2021. Comes to PFL and beats Tom Lawler with a guillotine in the first round. Next fight, he gets Guinea Magalhaes, and he's winning the fight, but it ends in a no contest due to a groin strike. I never want to say anyone quit, but Vinny kind of looked like he wanted out there. A little bit of a controversial ending to that one. Obviously, Antonio Carlos Jr. is an exceptional grappler, will be the better grappler here, I'd expect. He has looked good, but has he looked good enough to be favored over Sordi? And that's where I'm kind of not sure. I do like what I've seen out of Antonio Carlos Jr., and obviously he has his areas where he has an advantage here, but I'm not sold on him. I feel like Sordi, maybe, I still think I would have him at minus 120 or something like that, to be honest. I'm just not completely sold on Antonio Carlos Jr. yet. Sordi definitely hasn't looked amazing lately, I'll admit that, but I'm going to take the dog to win this one. Not super confident, but I am going to go with Sordi to get this one done. Now in the co-main event of the evening, we have Chris Wade and Bubba Jenkins, 145-pound matchup. This should be a fun matchup. Chris Wade, 19-6, 5-2 stint in the UFC. One of his 2 losses was Islam Makhachev, so you can kind of give him a pass there. 7-3 so far in his PFL career. Beat Anthony Dizy in the first fight of the 2021 season. It was a competitive fight. Dizy got him down 4 times and definitely got the first round. But Wade was able to, stick with it and get the win. Next fight was Ospinov, close first round. Got knocked down in round 2, then recovers and has a beautiful finish to win. So really wasn't looking great for him earlier in either fight, but he was able to pull them both out. This is going to be a tough matchup here with Bubba Jenkins. Bubba Jenkins, 16-4. Wrestler fighting out of Black House, has a slight reach advantage here. He's on a 5-fight win streak. Upset Lance Palmer as a sizable dog in the first fight of the season. Got him down 4 times. Lance is a wrestler too. Then he fights Bobby Moffett, looks good early, falls off a bit in round 3 and makes it closer than you'd like. But, he had banked those first 2 rounds and, he was able to get him down 3 different times. I think that Jenkins is going to be able to get Wade down, and Jenkins is going to be my pick. I think he gets the job done. Wade hasn't looked great this season, and Jenkins does seem to be hitting his stride a little bit. So I'm going to go with Bubba Jenkins to get this one done. And I do actually have a little bit of money on him as well. That's going to bring us up to the main event, and that's going to be a fight between Brendan Loughnane and Movlid Khaybulaev. This is a fight I'm really looking forward to. Really good featherweight matchup here. Loughnane is 21-3, comes in on a 7-fight win streak. Should probably be in the UFC by now, but Dana wasn't impressed enough with his Contender Series performance. And now he has a chance at $1 million in the PFL, so good for him. Great fighter, primarily a striker. Will be the better striker in this match, I believe. Has a slight size advantage, height, and reach. Just won a majority decision over Tyler Diamond. Not sure why it wasn't unanimous. Outlanded him by about 50 strikes. Took him down twice and knocked him down. At least rounds 1 and 2 I feel like had to be Loughnane, but it is what it is. At least the judges got it right in the end. Had the vicious KO against Sheymon Moraes to kick off the season. Coming into this fight with excellent momentum. And speaking of momentum, Movlid is undefeated through 18 bouts at 17-0-1. Or is he? No contest to Daniel Pineda was a loss that was overturned due to, I'm pretty sure it was PED use on Pineda's part. Khaybulaev was finished in the first round there, under 30 seconds into the fight. With that said, let's not act like he's a scrub. Very talented, excellent wrestler, excellent grappler, has the advantage there, I'd say. Loughnane will be the better striker. Khaybulaev has a win over Herbert Burns on 1FC a few years back, beat Stojadinovic this season, won every round, took him down at will pretty much, then fights Lance Palmer, also a wrestler, outstrikes him and gets him down 4 times. Wins every round there too. This matchup with Loughnane is going to be a little bit different. I feel like Loughnane could really come in here and make him uncomfortable with heavy leg kicks and heavy strikes in general. I don't love Khaybulaev's chances in a striking match. We all know what he has to do to win here. He has to wrestle. When it does hit the mat, he needs to have, just suffocating control and land shots. I'm actually going to go with Brendan Loughnane as the underdog here. I feel like all the value is on him in this one. And I think this should be lined a little bit closer to a pick'em at dog money. I like Loughnane from a betting perspective. Not sure if I'll end up playing it. I do have a lot of respect for Khaybulaev's game, and I'm not taking him lightly, but I'm going to go with Brendan Loughnane to get the job done in this one. So that's going to be my pick here, guys, and that's going to do it for my PFL picks for this card. This was a bit of a tougher one to break down, some close matchups on here. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen. I hope you have a good one, and take care. I'll see you on the next one.